Lewis, firstly, welcome to the video and happy St. David's Day.
Yeah, I didn't. I even forgot it was St. David's Day. To be
Yeah,
fair. Yeah,
I saw it from summer on my timeline, so I thought I'd include it. I don't know if you celebrate it vastly or whatnot, but
yeah, celebrated every year.
yeah.
Every year. Nah, I mean, I couldn't. I completely forgot today. I didn't
Yeah.
even know what the date was.
No, well, it's a pleasure to have you on the video. If you could just quickly give everyone an introduction as to what your role is on FOKUS and how that's been going.
Yeah, I'm Lewis, or YaBoiLewis, and yeah, I'm the IGL for FOKUS. So yeah.
Nice. Of course, we met up at Epic 38, the Beacon event that's just gone by this last weekend. How did you find that event, firstly, and what does it mean to be such a big supporter of the scene? Because I seen you at the last couple of those events, getting involved on that grassroots level. What does that mean to you?
Nah, yeah, I enjoy it. I want to play them. I'm not allowed to play them
Yeah.
because it's like now it's beacons and you get beacons points to get into the league in Polaris and stuff.
Mm.
No, I like the events. I know a lot of the people there anyway. Got to support the boys. Help them out if they ever need helping out. But yeah, I mean, you know, you need your grassroots.
Yeah.
I think like there's quite a lot of people that always go to the events anyway, that don't even play. So, but yeah, I tend to go to quite a few of them when I know a lot of the players there that are playing. It's just enjoyable to watch, especially if they have the days off anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the UK scene in general, I think back towards CS wasn't really regarded as being one of the higher tier regions, I think it's fair to say. But now coming into Valorant, it being a different game, I think that's changed quite a bit. And you, of course, would be regarded as one of those players who's hit that top cut, at least in terms of experience towards VCT and hailing from the region. What's that like, and why do you think it's been so different in this new game?
Well, I didn't really come from CS. I don't really know. I just know
Yeah.
of it now. I
Yeah.
heard back to it. Apparently, UK CS and all that isn't
Yeah.
at the greatest level. I mean, it's a fresh game, but it's there's a lot to it. You know, I think that like all it is you just put the time in and you can get to you can get to a high position if you just put the time in, and that's what I did and a lot of players are doing. But like I think a lot of people just tried to take the opportunities, especially from the UK, because if they weren't like UK CS wasn't high up and like all the games in the UK wasn't high up, I think that was like the opportunity for like the UK to try and get themselves back into it, kind of. But yeah.
Yeah, just to briefly talk about your experience then with Home Ground as well before we get into playoffs. I think a lot of people want to know about how that event went in general, because it was a pretty exciting tournament for you guys as well, and an opportunity to go up against some of that international competition. Of course, when you played Challengers, that was restricted to EMEA, but you got an opportunity then to play with some competition outside of the region, and I guess in many ways it is that precursor to Ascension in some senses. So how was your experience of that event as a whole?
Yeah, it was enjoyable. We looked forward to it for a while, and that was all we prepared for. Like Red Bull, I knew we knew we had VRL coming up in like mid-January anyway, but we just wanted to go and show everyone what we can do. Obviously, it was unfortunate we couldn't get purple there because of visa issues, but obviously we had a really good sub in Hillary, so we still had a strong team going into it, and we just wanted to go in there and surprise everyone. We just wanted to go and win it, and we had the eyes to go and win it, and you know, it was a pretty fun event. Obviously, we got technically we didn't get grouped, but we did get grouped. You know, it is what it is. Obviously, everyone was surprised we beat Cloud9. We weren't. It was, you know, they didn't really, you know, I don't know how they'll get on from now on, but yeah, I mean, we weren't that surprised. I guess that's the competitive part of it, and then we come close to Vitality, but Vitality are a very good team, so but yeah, it was quite a good experience.
Yeah, there are a few elements there that I want to pull on a little bit. Firstly, that whole getting grouped experience, probably not something that you want to relive, but talk me through it from your perspective and what you understood the ruling to have been, and then that how was sort of, I guess, misconstrued on many levels.
Normally, like any sort of riot events like VCT and stuff, like the ruling normally goes that it's head to head. Like, so if you draw bottom with the team and like only one of you go through, it normally goes head to head, so who beat who. So in which case, in that event, crew beat us and we were at the bottom together. And so technically, normally, crew would go through. But on the ruling for like that event specifically, it wasn't. It was to do with
like round differential, right? I think, or something along those lines.
it was no, wait. It was round head to head. And it might have been rounds, yeah. It was
Yeah.
no.
I mean,
No,
look,
maps.
yeah,
It was
maps.
games, right? It
Yeah,
was
so the
maps, right?
tournament's finished
So
and we still
yeah.
don't even know what it
No,
was, right?
yeah. No, it was maps.
Yeah.
I got confused. Yeah, it was maps. So obviously we got beat 2-1 to
Mm,
Vitality, so there's one map for us, and then we beat Cloud9 2-1, so that's 3 maps to us. And Crew got beat 2-0, 2-0, and then they beat us 2-0. So they had 2 maps, we had 3 maps. So technically on the ruling, we went through.
mm,
And then like they put it through and everything.
yeah.
Like obviously it was unfortunate for Crew that the ruling was messed up, but that it is what it is. Like
Mm.
we couldn't do anything about it. It was the tournament's fault. And then at like 1 a.m., 2 a.m., we're literally in the hotel ready to go to sleep, and then yeah, we get a message in the Discord that they've changed the ruling, which yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it must be pretty soul crushing, right? But then, of course, you have to look at that high note that you hit as well against C9, and I think that's something that a lot of people would be very interested in. Talk me through that game and how it played out. I think it also reaches to what you said a bit about the quality of teams that there are here in the sort of challengers level right now, and then what VCT looks like in comparison, and whether you expect to see too many changes in the next transfer window we have coming up.
Yeah, the game was pretty blind for both teams. Obviously, we didn't know how they were going to play. They were a complete new team, and they didn't know anything of us. But like it was more about just playing to our own strengths and them playing to their own strengths. And a lot of it probably came down to just individual performances. Obviously, they've got experience individually, and obviously they've already got a core from last year. But we just went in there. I think confidence was what won it us. Obviously, I think on the last map on Pearl, and even on Bind, like Bind was also very close. I think I jumped on the Yoru in that game. It's a little surprise pick, but I think it was pretty difficult. I was trying to call on Yoru. I didn't have much experience on Yoru, but we were confident we were going to win. But yeah, they pulled it out the bag on Bind, and then on the last map on Pearl, it was like there's quite a few calls which were what we'd just been like grinding in scrims, like it was just stuff that we already knew, and we just tried to adapt versus what they were doing on defense. And it was a pretty good game. I mean, it wasn't like I said, it wasn't surprising to beat him. Like it felt like we should have. Yeah.
So then obviously from the off season towards Polaris, and then the tournament that you saw when you were playing with Alluri, not being able to play with Purpo in those sort of official games, I guess you could call them, in some capacity. You also speak right now of how much practice you've been putting in the scrims and sort of drilling those ideas in. Do you think that affected your preparation somewhat then coming into this first split?
No, not necessarily. I think the only thing that kind of messed with the preparation, I'd say, was the fact that originally split 1 wasn't supposed to matter, and whoever won split 2 goes to Ascension. That was like that was the idea behind it. And then just before the split 1 had started, it's just before it, then like they changed it and said basically that so it's the same as every other regional league in Europe, that both splits matter, so it's like a point system, and then that kind of changed the way that we looked at it. So the way that I kind of wanted to mess around with it was, we were a new team. We hadn't had too much, ever since, especially Red Bull, because it was only about 2-3 weeks. We probably only had about 2 weeks before VRL to scrim and stuff. So the idea was to just test a bunch of stuff, test what roles we want to play, like how we want to play different comps and stuff in the first season. Try and find more of like the identity of the team, and then we can kind of go more in depth and sort everything out. And then obviously, like I said, when it changed the aim, essentially. The aim then is just, all right, get playoffs. First, second, third, fourth, doesn't matter, get playoffs. And that's kind of where, okay, it's just go in there, perform, and just try and get to playoffs. Like there wasn't really anything else to look for, it was harder to test stuff. There was I think on Ascent we changed our comp 3 times, or at least we changed our comp twice, and then also made like a micro adjustment between like the fade and the sober mid-season, and then we also changed between KP and line playing on controller and sentinel. We had them on different maps, so it was all a bit confusing. But I think as soon as we got playoffs, that's where we kind of just looked at it and said, right, now that we've kind of had a test with everyone, we can figure stuff out, talk about what everyone's comfortable on, how we want to play, how we want to essentially prepare and approach playoffs. We have more of an idea now of what we want to do. So
Because I mean, obviously, over time as well, we saw you move from being that duelist player then into initiator. We've now seen a change from you being in one of those supportive roles to, of course, the IGL, the front man, the one who dictates everything. And I think you have to say as well, like, yeah, if that's what the preparation looked like, you would have wanted more time to set into those roles. I think a lot of the teams that we've seen, roster changes and the like so far in Polaris have struggled to get those roles under wraps and really define what their identity is as a team. How has moving into IGL for you sort of felt as a whole?
Quite natural, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, I've always been talkative. Like, even when I was on duelist, I was always very, very talkative in the team. Like, I think communication is like one of the biggest parts. Obviously, you can't overcome, and you can't have everyone overcoming and making calls all the time. So you got to find that balance within teams. But even when I was on duelist, I was calling a lot. I had more of an idea of what I wanted to do. But I think that comes down to confidence, because a lot of people have ideas, but they don't say it and they don't call it and they don't say it with confidence as well. So, and the more you say it with your confidence, the more your team trusts the ideas and they follow behind you. And then I always seen like my potential that was going to be on flex. So when I moved to flex, when we picked up Yugi, went onto the operator role because I was fine on duelist, but I wasn't an operator player. I was too inconsistent with it. But then we picked up Yugi. I went onto flex, and I was still, and that's where I found it where I was more comfortable like second calling. We had the Illyri obviously calling in focus, and second calling I was doing enough of with Illyri. Obviously he was the main caller, and I was just I found it fine second calling. And then when we, made the decision to then put me onto IGL, the only difference I'd say now is that obviously I've got I was fine like figuring out adaptions in games and actually calling things and trying to change things and speak to the team and everything. But I'd say the main thing that just changed is the outside preparation.
Okay.
So I've got to work with the coaches more. I've got to do stuff like preparing for games, preparing the way we want to play. That's the only thing that changed, and I've just got to put more work in. I'd say like, yeah, I've been putting a lot of work in outside of scrims as well to make sure that like the team is there. But like in terms of actual calling in game IGLing, it felt pretty natural to me.
Yeah.
To be fair.
Yeah, I was just gonna say coming into this as well that you've been described by many as sort of that authoritative figure, that you are quite outspoken. Is this something that you'd been thinking about for a while? Was it just sort of that natural fit in, or did it require you to step up simply because some of the players had swapped on the team?
I mean, like in terms of actually going to IGL, the idea come from both the coach and Yugi.
Okay.
Like they wanted to, they felt like that I had it in me to do it, and like I'm more than I'd do anything in a team. It doesn't really bother me. I don't really care what role they play. That's why I just kind of play anything. Play Sentinel if I need to. The only one that like I haven't played is controller. But I'd give it a go. I'd be TPing around if I was on Omen. But yeah, I mean, yeah, like I said, they were the ones that kind of put the idea in, and they seen it in me to IGL. And then I guess like having someone like Yugi telling me that I could IGL and he feels like I could be a pretty good IGL when he's come from CS, having all these really good IGLs in CS, it kind of, I just took it, I thought, I'll give it a go. So yeah.
From the regular season that we've seen, and you now building up that confidence as an IGL, really embedding into what that team looks like. Now coming into playoffs, you said to me as well before that you think that this team has hit a different version, right? They're not. It's not the same focus that we saw in the regular split. Of course, you have some fierce competition in playoffs. Your first game will be up against Apeks. You weren't able to turn that result last time around. What do you think the shortcomings were of that last result, and what has changed to really improve things?
The way we play, the structure around what we do. I guess especially in the last one, I'd say that there was obviously problems with maybe roles and kind of like everyone understanding a game plan. Like obviously that also was like a learning experience for me, especially in a few of the games this season, is making sure that we prepare and everyone's on the same page before a game, knowing what to do when they go into it, so it's not as random. Obviously, I think Apeks worked, and they play very like basic. They play very fundamentally, and they do it pretty well. But and that kind of helped them on an individual level, because individually they outperformed our team, and I think that was like the biggest difference, was the individual performances. They were all on the same page and we weren't. So it's making sure that now when we go into the next game against them, if we're on the same page, then it'll be a complete different game.
Yeah. So it's just ironing out some of those issues that there were before. Then, of course, Apeks coming into this, they'd only dropped 3 maps so far across the entire of the regular split, 2 of those being in the previous game, just coming off of a loss as well. Then heading into that, how do you really prepare for a game when you know that, okay, the team we've just played have faced a setback, but they are a very strong opponent. We know, a fair bit about them. What's the sort of line of attack, I guess?
Just making sure that we can carry over everything that we've been practicing for in scrims, and making sure that we do it in the official very, very confidently.
Yeah.
Like, I think everyone will be confident the next time we play, but it's making sure that they are, like that's like the biggest thing for me is, and individual performances will take a big key in it, and like, they have they have Kaiko, and they also have like Mystic's been doing really well this season individually, and then you also have players on our team that can, like, I think anyone on our team can go and win a game. And it's making sure that everything we've been working for we stick to. I give a game plan, the coach give a game plan, everyone's on the same page, and yeah, like they were also a new team coming into this, but they were also very like I think a lot of it, they probably had high energy going into it, fresh team, and that's how it is a lot of the time. They have a fresh team, and then they're all buzzing to be there, so they're all motivated to play. They're all on their peak and everything, and then you also have like the downslope. So like in the last game, they kind of got they didn't win. They lost to La Petite, and maybe that's where, like, and we have it as well. We had it this season pretty much, where you have a bit of a slump as a team. You have to figure out the mistakes, and it takes time. So it'll be interesting to see how they play as well, because it could be that they're still on the high, where they're doing really well, they're performing, or it could be that they could be on a slump and we expose them. It doesn't. It really. You won't know until we play them. So
yeah, that is the truth behind it, right? And there is that honeymoon period that sometimes you see about certain rosters. I think I was at least surprised to see that they gelled so quickly, and looking at some of the sort of messages that you feel through the scrim vine and whatnot, and not that always counts for so much, but you start to wonder how things are going, of course, right? And I think looking at the other teams here in the playoffs as well, you have some pretty fierce competition. And then heading towards the final, I suppose, if you do make it the distance, do you then expect it to be Apeks again from the lower bracket, or how are you really weighing up the other 3 teams here?
I think it'll probably be La Petite or Apeks, and especially after that last game, I think La Petite play well together. They have like a really good structure. Like the players all know each other pretty well, and they've played together for a while. They've got quite a lot of experience together, except from obviously the addition of Vong. But now he's had a season with them.
Yeah.
They're all like, and I think that's why they beat Apeks, because whenever Apeks whenever they struggled, they kind of got exposed in their last game, because La Petite were able to find the gaps because of their experience, because of like how well they play together. I think HSDIRR might struggle, but they could also surprise anyone. I think that they have a few decent players in HSDIRR, but I do think it'll be the Apeks and La Petite, like talking hypothetically, if we do get to the final.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that as well. I think HSDIRR are another one of those teams that have so much potential in this league, right? And I think that is the main thing. There is so much quality across the board. The final question that I want to pose towards you really is, we saw Hookahs go LFT today as well. Some of these teams that you've been playing against have disbanded. They've changed players along the way. What are your real premonitions about what this second split could now look like in Polaris? And when you're going up against these teams that are constantly changing sometimes, does that help in any way, at least in terms of how you prepare to face them? Of course, you've then got to look at the opposite end, which is the sort of health of the ecosystem that we spoke about earlier when we were mentioning about being at Epic and sort of betting into the grassroots and making sure that everything is as good as it can be.
Yeah, I mean, for us, preparation wise, like when they keep making new teams and like the teams aren't great, they're not getting time much together, they haven't got an org behind them. Technically for us it is easier, but it's kind of sad to see. Like, I don't want to see it. I want to see consistent teams. I want to see players staying in their teams, sticking together with organizations. And what I would say that I think and I'd be like a very strong believer in saying it, that they've got to bring teams up and organizations up from beacons. Like we've seen at Epic, like we've seen these organizations like that are back in the lower end teams in tier 3, tier 4, and like the winners of the last one, Insight, like why can't they come up into it? Why, like, I don't know. I'm not sure whether it would be much fair if like a team, like one person or two people that can keep the spot in Polaris can just keep building teams and not working. They should. I think that, like, especially to keep the grassroots up, because if they bring up teams from Beacons now, it just it gives more players down in tier 3, tier 4 to then think, all right, well, I want to play in these events because there might be an opportunity again next season to get up into it. So like, but you never know. I don't know what they're gonna do, but yeah, I think they've got to just bring up the teams from Beacons, the organizations, get as many organizations into it, and just try and build the league up to the standards of the other leagues.
I guess it's that difficult balance and sort of taking a gamble on the smaller organizations as well, because if you compare an Insight to a FOKUS, for example, FOKUS, you have all of that investment, that backing, that kind of thing. And while Insight provides a framework, it's better than the current base level that we have in Polaris. Exactly, yeah. But then again, it's can you count on it to really be there in some of those pivotal moments? It's a real question that I think a lot of people have on their minds at the moment, and what the best way to tackle with this is. But I mean, I completely agree with a lot of the points that you've made, and it's just about having that support network for a lot of these teams.
Yeah, I mean, like, even if it is the smaller orgs, they might not be on the same level as these organizations, Apeks, FOKUS, but it still helps out the players and the teams to have a bit of like security behind them, to help them out with the staff, with having managers, with being able to actually not have to worry about other things when the organizations can help them with doing that, so they can focus on the league. Because there's too many project teams, and the problem with the project teams is, like, individuals can leave whenever they want, and if they want to leave, they'll go, and that's what's breaking teams up at the minute. But even if you have the smaller organizations, I think also what will help is the content side of things. More organizations, the more content that will come from the organizations. But when you have the project teams, it's like, when you're in a project team, you don't really care about the content side of anything. You're not really bothered about that. You're trying to work to get into an organization. So yeah.
Well, I guess content is a big part of it. So thank you very much for joining me on this video. Hopefully we can get this in the machine, right? Keep feeding it, and there we go. The ecosystem can benefit somehow from it. I don't know if I'm just waffling, but it's been an absolute pleasure.
Get as many people on there as possible.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for joining me. Best of luck in playoffs, and we'll see you all next time. There we go.
Nice one.